All right, so we are almost done with having our grass look the way we want it to. So I'm going to hit F12 to give us an idea what our grass currently looks. Looks pretty good right now. Has a lot more variation in it than it did before, and it doesn't look so perfect, so it looks a lot more realistic. But what it doesn't have is other plants within this. So usually when you have grass, unless you have perfectly manicured grass, professionally manicured, there are some other plants within the grass. So we're going to easily create this variation in the types of grass within our grass by just making some slightly longer grass that's slightly different color. So that'll give it like a more straw type look to it. And it's going to be really easy. So the first thing we're going to do is select our plane, and then I'm going to hit Shift D and then Z to bring it down. And let me go ahead and turn on, or make sure that you can see the capture here. So now we have a plane that's identical under the original plane. So I'm going to hit 1 on the numpad to see that from the side. I'm going to hit G for grab, Z to move it in the Z. And I want them to be relatively close. They don't have to be super close, but relatively close. So if I look over here in our object tree, we have 2 planes. So let's make this a little bit easier to read. So the first plane, I'm just going to call grass main. And then the new plane that I just created, I'm going to call grass sparse. And that's because it's not going to be nearly as dense as the first bit of grass we made. So we have within our grass sparse, we're going to go to the particle panel, and within the particle panel, I'm going to hit this copy button here. So it's the picture that looks like a normal copy button. I'm going to hit that, and now we have a new particle kind of context to create under. So I'm going to change the name. Instead of grass main, it's now going to be grass sparse. I'm going to do that same thing here. I don't know that you have to, but it's always good to stay consistent with your name. So now we have the name under the particle panel as grass sparse, and we also have the name of the object also as grass sparse. So one of the main differences between this grass and the grass that we already created is that this grass is going to be longer. So we're going to go to emission under the particles panel, and I'm going to leave this as 100. And I'm going to decrease this, and I'm going to put it at 7 inches. So 7 IN, we'll put it at inches. If you are used to the metric system, that is 0.178 meters, or if you have an idea of how tall the grass we're looking at it might be, you can put in whatever you like. The other thing we're going to do is decrease the total number here, because we don't want this to be as dense as the other. So we could do that here, but actually we're going to do that in the children. So I'm going to scroll down till I get to the part that says children. And when under the children, I'm going to leave everything except I'm going to decrease the rendered amount to 10. So the rendered amount and the display amount is going to be about the same. So now if I take a look, I hit F12 and take a look and see what we have, you can see that we have these longer pieces inside here that represent what's going to be a straw. So the next thing we're going to do, because it's really hard to see, is give it some different coloring. So I'm going to make sure that grass sparse is highlighted, and I can see it's highlighted by here by looking at my object tree. And on the left side, I'm going to hit that same copy button and change the name to grass sparse. Now I'm using the copy button because we're just making variations on stuff that we've already done before. So in order to see it better, I'm going to go back to the tree here, and under main, I'm going to turn off this eye. Now that just makes it so that I can see the one we're talking about, and then grass main is not in the way. So what I'm going to do to make sure that everything is a little bit different, because one is sitting right on top of the other, I'm going to shift the X a little bit for the mapping. So if I hit 7 on the numpad to look from above, and I just drag over, you can see that I'm moving things to the left or to the right. So I'm just going to move that over. It doesn't really matter how much. I'm going to put 4 meters in there. The other thing I'm going to do is change the scale. So right now it's set to 5. I'm going to change that scale into 1.5. That's just going to make it look more different than the other one. And the other thing I'm going to do is make it a bit more yellow, because I want it to stick out a little bit more. So if I drag this over some, we can see that the whole thing becomes more yellow. So I'm going to drag it to about there. Now I'm going to go to grass main in the object tree, and I'm going to unclick the hide. So now we have both on top of each other. So if I hit F12, you can see that it's much easier to see this, what I'm going to call right now, kind of straw grass within it. So that's good for the visuals. But like I said before, or like we're trying to do, this is dynamic grass. It's going to move because there's wind. So we need to make sure that the dynamics of the straw are also correct. So make sure that we have grass sparse selected, and under grass sparse, under the particles panel, we're going to go to the hair dynamics. And the hair dynamics, let's see, are right here. there towards the top, and hair dynamics are checked because we created just a copy of the other one. And we're going to leave everything else mostly the same. The vertex mask, the stiffness, the random, we're going to leave all that the same. And what we're going to decrease is the damping. So we're going to decrease that by 2, so 0.25. And that means that the straw is going to move with less damping. So it's going to be a little bit more jittery. It's going to move a little bit more in the wind than the rest of the grass. And that makes sense because it's higher than the grass. So it doesn't have the same effect from the drag of having the grass, all the other grass around it. So that's what we wanted for our dynamics, and that's what we wanted for our material. So if we hit a quick F12 just to see that again, and zoom out just a little bit, you can see that we do have the effect we're going for. So that is it for the grass. The only thing left is to create the wind.